Hello, I'm John Binnie and welcome to my EcoFlow Delta 2 product review. First of all, this is an unsponsored video, so I bought this device. In fact, I have several of them with my own money, and that gives me the freedom to be able to give you a completely unbiased review. So what is it? It is a power bank. So the EcoFlow Delta 2 is a way of storing electricity, and you can store quite a lot of it. You can store it and reuse it with things like 12-volt devices, charging mobile phones, and also mains devices. So in the UK, that's anything up to 240 volts. And this one, the Delta 2 version, it's a Delta 2 Max, and that means that it stores 2,000 watt hours of electricity. That means that you can run a device that is 2,000 watts for an hour. Now, there's lots of different reasons why I'm interested in a product like this. And mainly I'll be focusing on our usage with, previously we had a motorhome and now we have a campervan. And it has no gas, so no propane. And most of our adventures camping are electricity focused, and then for cooking and all our devices. And then we also have things like a diesel heater for heating. So let's talk a bit about it. I'm going to bring you over and help you see the product a bit more clearly. My dog Patch is a little papillon. He's right in the way here, so let's see if we can move this over him. Excuse me, Patch. And what's amazing about these devices are that they're really, really easy to use. So for example, there's an on button. There we go, it's on. And what the display shows is the total number of hours. So depending on what it is you're using at any given time, it'll tell you how many hours you have left, which is really, really handy. Total percentage usage, and then the input, and then the output. So these are the watts coming in and out. And the watts are independent of the device voltage you're using. So across the front here, we have a range of different ports. So there's the fast charging ports, and I can't remember the exact number these go up to, but they are fast. They're up to it's something like 60 watts plus. It might be as high as 180. I'd need to check. In fact, I can check up here when I look in a moment. It has two USB ports, and then two of these USB-C. So these are 100 watts each. And while I'm here, let me just double check. So there's a handy sticker up on the top here, which is different to the other versions of EcoFlow, of the Deltas. And so I'm just going to read what it says here. So it says USB fast charging is up to, it's a little bit small to read. Oh, let's go with 60 watts. Okay. The tiny writing, I would need a magnifying glass for some of that. And then there's also like an on and off for these. So you can, by clicking this on, it turns on all of these and turns it off. By default, the device will beep when you turn these things on and off. And then I must admit, the build quality of these devices is impeccable. Now, I have had an older, smaller EcoFlow for years. I think it's over 4 years old, and it's still working just like the day that we bought it brand new. This one is just a few days old, so we got it in the post just a couple of days ago. Now, it is really heavy, as you'll see me try to attempt to move it in a moment. Well, I know I can, and I can lift it with one hand, but just for short distances. I'm going to turn it around and show you the stuff at the back, but before I do, let me just zoom you out a little bit with my manual zoom here. And I want to show you the other EcoFlow device. So the other one is, this is the Delta 2. So this is like the normal size one because this one is the max. So this one does up to 100 amp hours. This is 200 amp hours. So it's half the capacity. As you can tell, there's quite a big difference in the height, but also the length. The dimensions are really quite different. And this one will power the mains devices up to 1,800 watts, and that's under its special boost mode. And then this one will go up to, now depending on the literature that you read, at very least 2,400, but it also talks of being able to run at 3,100, and I think that's for selected devices. And that's amazing, right? But also peaks of up to 4,800. So if you plug something in, so I think some hair dryers might do this, or some devices that have capacitors in them, that when they first initially load and charge the capacitors of a device, this should be able to handle up to 4,800, which is incredible. Okay, so let me turn it around. I'm also going to try and avoid standing on my dog patch. Okay. So wish me luck. Okay. There we go. I did it. So let's zoom you in and show you some of the ports here on the back. So first of all, you'll notice there are 4 of these plug sockets, and they're fantastic. So these are the mains plugs, and they're different shapes. There's different models for different countries. So you can literally just take, as I turned it on at the front, and then you turn on this button here, which turns on the built-in inverter. These sockets are now live, so I could go and plug in any device that I wanted to that was 220 to 240 volts in the UK. So I just turn it off. And the reason you turn it on and off is because charging the inverter itself, like it loads a bunch of capacitors, that takes quite a lot of power. And then in the back here is really handy. So this is where you charge the device itself. And you can charge this from the mains, or as you'll see in a moment, I'll take you into my campervan and show you. But you can charge this directly from the mains, and it charges the whole device in just about an hour. So that's incredible. And then there's these 2 connections here, and this is where you connect in either solar, and it comes with a special cable to already connect it in. You either charge it with solar, or you can charge driving, for instance, and when you're driving in your car or your campervan, you can connect into here at 12 volts, and these go up to 8 amps each. And then at the bottom here we have, this is the 12 volts output. So if you just take out this stopper, which is great because it stops anything being put in there, especially by kids. So you can run 12 volt devices off there. What I would say is, from my experience of most of the EcoFlows, is consider getting a power regulator to stabilize the 12 volt output. Same with the input as well, if you're trying to input from different things. And then there's these 2 3 amp max DC connections as well, and you can just click on here to turn these on. So that will create a 12 volt output. So turn that back off. So that's it. Nice and simple, right? And if I just lift you up a moment and give you a sense of the difference in size and scale, definitely with this. Now I need to watch my back and the angle I'm doing this, but it's pretty easy to pick up with one hand for short distances. For very short distances, it is more difficult to pick up the Delta 2 Max. The Delta 2 Max is about 20 kilograms. So if you've ever lifted weights, you'll know that that's really heavy. But what I would say is, before I take you into the campervan, is one of the amazing things, I come over here and talk to you. One of the amazing things is that when you're in a campervan, just like we've got here, you can take it out of your campervan, right? So that means if you so we sold our last motorhome, and we did have this device. So it meant that we could take it with us. And that's great, right? Because this one at the moment is retailing on Amazon. If you search carefully and on other websites, you'll find it for about 500 Great British pounds. And this one we got on Amazon for £1,000. So if you're investing that into your caravan, campervan, motorhome, and then selling it, you know, a year or two later, if this lasts for 4 years, you'd love to take that investment with you, right? The other really cool thing is, just like we've done here, is that you can take these devices. So we've done, you know, off-grid camping for quite some time, and then you might be visiting a friend, and you just say to your friend, "Is it okay if I maybe pay you in kind or pay you a few pounds? And I'd love to be able to charge up my my EcoFlow so that you can walk out of that, you know, that hour-long coffee with them with maybe 80% or even 100% charge." And isn't that amazing, right? It means that you don't have to like worry about plugging everything in and getting everything perfect. You know, if you're parking someone's driveway, for example. And some of the examples, and we'll try some of these out in a moment, but some of these examples, like you can boil a kettle at least 10 times. So some of the kettle I have, it's a 1,000 watt kettle. You can do it about 10 times here to do about a liter each time in your kettle. And then, you know, it would be double for this, although I've not tried to extend to the total capacity. And there's an app that comes for these. In fact, it's the same app that works with both. So I see them as the same app, and you can do really cool things like set the limit to how much charge they will take, which is amazing, right? Because it means that you can plug it into lower capacity batteries or inverters, and what that will do is it will limit the input, so you're no longer having to worry about it like overloading the thing that you're charging it from. Also, they do make a bit more noise when they're charging, so if you want to do it really quite quietly, you could take it down from maybe 2,000 watts or 1,000 watts all the way down to maybe 400 watts or 300 watts, and just let it charge quietly in the background, especially if you're doing it overnight. Like no one would know that you're recharging it, so you just can't hear the fans. The other thing they have on the sides here are these connectors. Now these are custom connectors. They're little sockets that connect into additional capacity. So if you want to buy more capacity, you can just buy another EcoFlow. Now they're different devices to this. They don't have all the inverter stuff, I don't think. I think they're just an extension of the battery, the lithium batteries themselves. But what's handy about it is that it's all using the same software, the same device, the same connection, and that makes it much easier. The other great thing is that if you're in your campervan, for example, and your inverter breaks, and that is quite common for a range of different brands, that the inverter will break, and that means, you know, you might be trying to maybe boil your kettle, for example, or cook from your built-in inverter and battery system within your campervan or motorhome. What you can do with this is, it means you've already got a built-in inverter. You can just use this. So just swap your plugs over or plug something directly into this. And as you'll see in a moment, as I take you to the campervan, this also allows you to just have it sat out in the middle of your vehicle. And so all these ports that you see, they can all be used all at once. And it's so handy, right? Because if someone says, "Oh, I really need to charge my phone," or wouldn't it be handy if we had more power sockets inside or outside? Because you could take all this outside and just power the, your induction hob or whatever you have for cooking. You can just take it outside with you. They are very rugged. I haven't checked to see like if they have any water resistance, etc. Personally, I've taken them out. I would take it out in a kind of foggy day, medium fog, if you like, but I wouldn't take it out in the rain. If it was out in the rain, I would cover it. If it was just light rain, I would cover it. And you can buy cases to do that as well. Okay, so there are another couple of buttons to show you. And this one's important just before we take it to campervan. So there's a reset button, which is really handy. And then there's this other one here, which I didn't know what it was, but when you first buy this, it has this little switch flipped across, and what it does is it prevents you from changing the input wattage. So what's great about this, it's a lock on the input wattage. So for example, when I plug this into my Campervan, I have a 1000 watt inverter, and if I left this at 2000 watts, it would try and take 2000 watts from a 1000 watt inverter, and that would cause my inverter it would either cause a safety issue, or it would constantly cut with its overprotection mode. It would say, sorry, that's too much, I'm cutting the electricity. So when you lock this, it means that you can't then go into the app and then accidentally change the settings, which is fantastic. So I could comfortably give my app to, my son or my wife and say, yeah, go ahead and turn the inverter on in the app, without worrying about them playing around with any settings that could cause any damage. Okay, so let's take you into the Campervan, and I think what it'd be quite funny to do. Now, in part, I'm a little bit lazy and I don't want to do loads of editing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you me taking this into the Campervan, because I think it'd be useful for you to see me carrying it, and to give you a sense of the different weights of the devices. So yeah, here we go. Let's see what happens. So what I'll do is I'll just take you outside. I'll just position you out here, and I'm just going to lift these. So bear with me a second. So I'll get the first one. This is the light one. And the light one, as you can see, is pretty easy to carry. I can carry it with one hand. That's no problem at all. And I'm just going to leave it down here because I'm about to get the heavy one. And before we put them in the Campervan, we'll just unlock the Campervan. There we go. So let me get the big one. You'll see this is a bit of a different story. Okay, here we go. So there we go. There's the 20 kilogram one. And I can just about hold it with one hand for short distances. But it's just to give you a sense of what it's like. Okay, so let me take you into here, which is good fun. Okay, so I'm going to lift it with two hands, and if you are lifting something like this up onto a heavy surface, I'd definitely encourage you to put it onto the heavy surface first before then heading in. And what I'll also do is I'm just going to close my door and bring over the other one as well. There we go. Just so we've got it to hand. Now, as you can see, that's much easier to lift. All right. So let's take you in our Campervan. So if you're interested, this Campervan is a Peugeot Boxer. It is a Peugeot Boxer 2018, and it's a conversion that's been done by two different companies. One was done, and then the first customer unfortunately died, and so it's handed over to a second company, and then I bought it. And since then I've made a range of modifications. A little bit out of breath. Okay, so let's put the EcoFlow into position. Now, do you like my inventive storage, which is basically just having the EcoFlow outside, like just having it out here. I'm just going to turn it off because I'm about to plug in the back various connections. So one of them, to explain a little bit before I show you, the way that I've set up the EcoFlow is that I want to be able to take full advantage of all of the different features of it without having to constantly move it around. As you can see, I also want it to be really accessible, so I just brought it in through the step into the main area of my Campervan. It's also very sturdy. I would stand on it, maybe not. Now I don't know, somewhere between about 10.5 and 11 stone, and 5'7". I don't know if the height matters, but maybe watching your head as you stand on something. But the idea is that having it out here and accessible means it's so easy to take in and out, charge in and out. So let's show you how it's connected. So what I have is, I have 3 connections, and I'll explain what they are in a moment. I'm just going to plug them in first so that you get an idea of what they're like in situ. And to explain, the way this works is that I have 3 plugs. One is for charging, so there's one at the top I'm putting in. I'll show you in a second. The one that goes in the top is for charging the device from an inverter I have here, so a 1000 watt inverter. The 1000 watt inverter is connected to my vehicle leisure battery. And what's great about that is that it's just a 100 amp hour leisure battery, another lithium battery. What it means is that all the solar energy that comes in from my about 360 watts solar, which is on the roof of the van, when that comes into the van, it goes into the leisure battery under here. And then when I'm driving, that also goes into, comes through a DC to DC charger, which goes up to about 30 amps. That goes into the leisure battery. And then also, if I plug in our vehicle into the mains power, that will also charge the leisure battery. So the leisure battery is like the main place where all the power goes. And whilst you can do, there are lots of alternatives you can do for charging the EcoFlow, including a relatively new device, and that new device is called the alternator charger by EcoFlow. And I think that charges, there's different models, but you can charge at least up to 800 watts. Now that's a lot, right? That's fast. That means that likely in a day, I use, I think for what I've been using when I'm out and about, I'll probably use something like 50 amp hours in a day or so, which, so about half of an EcoFlow. If I'm doing a lot of editing and using my laptop a lot, then I might use even more. So I'm just going to take you off the stand. Hopefully I won't drop you. There we go. So let's show you at the back here. I'm just going to check you can see everything. So yeah, this is the back of the EcoFlow. So the blue cable here at the bottom, so it doesn't matter which order the black one and the blue one are around. The blue one is the output of the EcoFlow, and it connects into it's a cable that I've run under the van, and it goes all the way to the back where my mains electric hookup is, or it's sometimes called shore power hookup. And what I've done is I've changed the connections at the back of the van so that I can allow the EcoFlow to pretend to the whole van that it is on mains power. So just this one plug here, and I did get a thicker cable for it, will run the mains power to the whole van. Now what's important is to disable any charging, because otherwise unless you intentionally wanted to charge your leisure battery, for example. So we almost never charge our campervan from mains hookup. We would if we were on a campsite. So for the majority of the time, I just have the charger that connects into my leisure battery disabled. So that way there's no circular charging. It's not, it might be a safety issue depending on your van. For ours, it's not a safety issue. It would just mean that the EcoFlow would charge the leisure battery all the way up to the top and then stop charging it after that. And the other cool thing is this. So if you're wondering what this black cable's for, it's connected to, I don't know if you'll be able to see it from here. It's not easy to see. If you can't see it, imagine it. But down there, I have a little relay. And so what the relay does is, the relay is really simple, and it's really old technology, right? The way it works is you just feed it a positive connection. So you're just feeding it the mains power that comes out of the EcoFlow. and you say to this relay, when you detect mains power, I want you to do something. And in my case, what it does is it disconnects the power coming from, this is the inverter here. So what that means is under here we have a leisure battery. The leisure battery puts power into the inverter, and then the inverter can output up to 1000 watts, and it comes out of there and into here. And importantly, when the EcoFlow is outputting mains power, it disables the inverter input. So why would I disable the charging of the EcoFlow when I'm outputting power? And the reason is the EcoFlow will automatically, if it detects an input here, it will automatically start charging from there. And I don't want it to try and take, for example, if I plug a kettle in here and I turn on the inverter to output 1000 watts, what happens is when you then have a charge coming into here, what it'll do is it'll start to try and take, it's called pass-through. It's like an uninterrupted power supply or uninterruptible power supply, a UPS type feature. And so instead of using the inverter in the EcoFlow, it uses the mains input to it. In this case, an inverter that's only 1000 watts. So I don't want that to happen. So all it does is it just says, okay, that little relay disables charging while the inverter on the Eco itself is up and running. So that's a simple thing to do if you know a little bit about wiring, or you could get an electrician to do it for you. Very cheap parts, relays. There's lots of modern versions you can do this, but I wouldn't recommend any yet. I did try some of the Shelly devices. I just found them finicky and difficult to configure, even though I've spent 26 years in software and artificial intelligence in my career. It just seemed unnecessarily, like the ones I was buying anyway weren't a good fit for me. But you can explore these and they're definitely possible. It would allow Bluetooth control, etc. I might show you at the end the stuff under here, but it's very overly complicated and very messy. And I've added to that with a couple of extra devices, which I can talk about in a moment. But we should get on with trying something out, right? So I'd like to try out, there's a fan in here. It's a 1000 watt fan. So that would be fun to try. So I'm just going to put you into the tripod and hopefully not knock you over. There we go. So what's cool, or should I say what's hot? Oh, I don't have in there. Oh, that's strange. I must have put it somewhere else. Let me just check. I must have taken it out in our hot sunny weather. Okay. What else do I have to show you? I have a microwave, but I don't have anything to heat. I do have a wee grill in here. There's a range of devices I use. So to explain what I'm about to do is when I turn on the inverter here, when I turn on the EcoFlow and its own inverter, it then charges all the sockets, if you like. So it puts live all of the main sockets in my Campervan. And as you can see, I've got one, a double socket just here in the kitchen area. So what's cool is I can go and fill up my kettle, which I'll do just now, and I'll show you what happens. So this is you can investigate this, right, and find a good kettle for you. Often researching low wattage kettles is really good, because household kettles are optimized for boiling really fast often. So they can take, 2000, 3000 watts. And so what you really want is something that's a bit calmer than that. Now, the EcoFlow can do up to 3100 watts. So that's interesting. I might actually try a faster kettle because it's handy. And it doesn't really matter how fast it goes. But you can also check and try it out for yourself, the efficiency as well. Oh, I do have water in here, so this is good. This is handy. It's in my bathroom here. And don't worry, it's fresh water, nothing else. So I'm just going to fill up the kettle. So I'm going to fill it up to 1 litre. And that's what I'd normally do. I'd usually have like a cup of coffee and then a little bit of hot water for doing my dishes. And I'd also have, maybe I was making noodles or, you know, some pasta or something that required water. It feels like paying attention to how much you put in is really good advice. So let's leave, let's just put this away because I won't need the water again. Okay. And you ready for this? It's getting very exciting. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, you can do all this what I'm about to do on the app. What you do need to do is first give the EcoFlow some power. So I'm going to do that by turning it on. I have another way of doing it, which is by turning on the inverter, the charging supply into the EcoFlow. So in other words, as soon as you plug it into a charging source of power, it will turn on. And then the next thing is going to reach down the back and then turn on that inverter. There's a little click. And there's a second click you might have heard, a louder one. That was my relay. So I turn on my plug here, and so my kettle here, this is all wired up to the inverter. What should happen is the lights come on. It has. And then let's see what the EcoFlow is doing, because this is the interesting part, right? What's the EcoFlow going to do to power this kettle, this 1000 watt kettle? Let's take a look. So if I look down at the display, what it's saying is, with the kettle plugged in, it's currently providing 940 watts. So, and the 940 watts, it would run for 2 hours, which makes sense, right? Because it's a 2000 watt or 2000 amp hour EcoFlow. So 2 times 1000, you get the idea. And it's a little bit like watching paint dry, or sometimes they say water boil, right? In that this is a slow kettle, so I'll not bore you. This will take quite some time to to boil. But what is really interesting is the EcoFlow. This one is making no sound. So there's fans on either side. There's no sound coming from it at all, and that's fantastic, right? Because it means that when you're out and about, and you know, you're maybe wanting to sleep. Maybe if you're in a little camper van like this, I'll just flip you around so you get a sense of the camper van. When you're in here, you don't want to be disturbed by your devices. Okay, and you also get a better sense from this angle about the space it takes up. And the other cool thing is, because the device is completely portable, it also means that if we're doing a long trip and I just don't need the power, I can just take it out. Or if I'm doing trips and actually want more capacity, I can add in more EcoFlows. So this one here, for example, the other cool thing you can do is connect that one, the output of that, so the mains output, into the mains output of this one. And what's great about that is, it means that you can chain them together. Now there will be a little bit of loss in the conversion, so there's converting the power from one to the other. So you'd be converting from 12 volts to 240 volts, and then into 240 volts, and charging the 12 volt batteries in the EcoFlow. But the loss, I'm guessing, is maybe 10%, and so you're still going to get 90% of your other EcoFlow, which is fantastic, right? If you're from EcoFlow or you know more about that, just let me know. Kettle's already making some good noises, which is fantastic. And before we finish today, before I have a coffee, I'm going to show you in here. Now, a little disclaimer is, I didn't wire all this up myself. In fact, no one company did. So what you might spot in here is some horrors of the complexity, but you'll get the idea. So let me just lift this up. It's just a wee glance at a couple of devices. So first of all, that's the lithium battery, the big black thing. And then I have something called the Victron Battery Protect. What that does is allow the turning on and off the inverter that's connected to it using Bluetooth, which is a really handy feature. It can also detect voltages. So if the voltage of the lithium battery gets too low, it can cut off the inverter and stop it draining itself. And then I have a pretty large, and I did warn you about those wires. I think a lot are redundant, to be honest. I also have the Orion TR Smart 30 amp DC to DC charger. Oh, and there's one more thing I'd like to show you. And this would be a great test, right? Is imagine that your diesel heater breaks, or diesel heaters take a little bit of time. I'm just going to turn the kettle off. Diesel heaters take a little bit of time to charge. So imagine charge to fuel themselves up and then to heat up and run, or maybe you've run out of diesel, or you just want to try this for fun. You can run your, I have a Truma heating system. You can run it from the EcoFlow. So if I turn this on here, what my Campervan thinks, you see it thinks just here, my Campervan thinks that it's connected to the mains. So it will do anything that is connected to the mains. So that's the heating on. I mainly use this feature for heating water for hot shower, because under here is a Truma heating system, and it will heat water on electric. It will heat the van with blown air heating on electric. It'll also do that on gas. As I mentioned earlier, I don't have any gas anymore, so it's only over electric. And since I don't plug our van into the mains power much, if ever, what I do is, if I'm off grid, and I did this just a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a tour of England. I took one of these power banks, so that one of the little ones, like this is the oldest one I have, the first EcoFlow, with a capacity of 100 amp hours, or 1000 watt hours. And what I did was I turned this on, and I turned it on to the heating. And what you find is you can set like the minimum threshold for the EcoFlow. So you could set it down to say stop, like cut out at 50% or 10%. I just set it to 10%. And so it'd heat the whole water tank, which is under here. And I could have a nice toasty hot shower while I was off grid. And so if I turn on the heating, so I'm just going to turn that on, and I'm going to turn the temperature all the way up to top, up to 30 degrees Celsius. And then I'm going to set the rating, it's like, this is the number of 2, it says EL2. That is the number of elements it's using. And you can also set to eco or high. This is just like the fan speed. So that's already started. And let's see what the EcoFlow is saying. It should, in a moment, start to say, there we go, it's up to 1800 watts. And it's saying that it'll run this for an hour. So actually, the actual number is 1778 watts. And it'll run that for an hour. Now, that is amazing, right? So those cold winter mornings, maybe you're getting into your Campervan, you don't want to turn on a diesel heater, maybe you don't have one, maybe you don't have any gas, and you just want to try there's already hot air coming out, or the vent next to it. You just want to start preheating your van, and you know you're driving for a long time. You'll charge this back up when you're driving, and you might just have heard the fans have finally started kicking in. So the EcoFlow now is just starting to heat up inside, and so its cooling fans are starting to run now, and they come out the sides. I have been told that you can run an EcoFlow on its side. You can have it really at any angle. You just need to make sure that the vents are exposed. So that's a good thing to do. Other questions like, could you put this somewhere more discreet so it's not out in the middle of your van? Yeah, you can. But the cool thing is here, as you can see, we've got a folding seat. And what happens is, like when my son's here, he can just plug his phone directly into here and charge. Or if we've run out of charging at the front here, USB connections, then you can just run another cable from here under the seats. And same if someone sat here or right at the back. And although I won't show you just now, another top tip is do a search for laptop chargers that are 12 volts, because they are incredible. Their efficiency is, for when you're running off something like an EcoFlow at 12 volts, and I would just plug it directly into the EcoFlow, is dramatically different to running it off the inverter. Something like, so I use a gaming laptop because it was my son's gaming laptop. I can run that instead of for only being able to run 4 or 5 hours, so it'd probably be about 10 to 12 hours on the larger EcoFlow. You can do many more times that. So instead of it being about 80 watts usage, it was something like 10 or 15 watts using a 12 volt laptop charger. So yeah, take a look, do some research and find out, because it makes a huge difference to off-grid living. So I'm just going to turn this off because I don't really need to heat my van right now. I'm going to turn it all the way down in case it comes back on to off, and then just hold it in and turn it off. Another thing I've not showed you is the EcoFlow app. Really easy to use. Works over Bluetooth or over Wi-Fi. You may have noticed I do have Wi-Fi in here and some pot noodles. And this is connected up to a little antenna on the roof, because vans are like Faraday cages, so they are great at insulating mobile signals. Maybe it helps for better sleep, but is terrible for mobile reception. So having one of those in an aerial on your roof is highly recommended. It also means that when you're not in your van, you can still access the EcoFlow while it has to be turned on. But what I can do is I can use my little remote connector for the my little remote battery protect from Victron, and what that does is over Bluetooth will turn it on, start charging the EcoFlow, and that will bring the EcoFlow into life. So that there are ways of, just initiating some connection, some power supply into the EcoFlow and waking it up and getting it started. Yeah, the app's so useful, and I often find what I do is, like, while I'm cooking here, what I'll do is I'll just have the EcoFlow app open, and so for the time I'm cooking, so I'll put my little induction hob on here, and I'll connect into my power socket. Oops. Once I'm done, it means I can just turn off using the app. I don't have to reach down the back of this device. I can just turn off the inverter, or just go over and press the button and turn off the EcoFlow. So yeah, any downsides to the EcoFlow? Well, you saw the weight, or the bigger ones especially, like, they're quite heavy, right? It is a downside. I mean, it is a kind of somewhat a law of the universe at the moment. Like, we don't yet know how to store electricity at a lighter weight. I would say for what you get, including like a 3,000 or so watt inverter, the ability to charge over solar, the ability to charge while you're driving, all these things, that's a lot of equipment. It is likely much lighter than all of those devices separately. And if, like me, you're interested in a little kind of charging station where you have your own little inverter that's helping top up your EcoFlow, or even charge it for if you're driving for many hours, then just make sure you choose an inverter that you really trust. Go for a brand that has good reviews and a model that has good reviews. Go for reliability over capacity. So it's much better to get a 1,000 watt inverter that's going to last for maybe 5-10 years than a 4,000 watt inverter that's going to last for a week and start smoking or going on fire, God forbid. And I would never charge my EcoFlow using an inverter unattended. So I'm always here, either in the van or I'm checking and keeping an eye on it. And the reason for that is just in case something goes wrong. You wouldn't usually want an inverter running forever, just in case it overheats or develops its own fault. I do, however, have complete trust, especially after 4 years. That was the oldest EcoFlow at the back there. That's the oldest one we've had. It's still running just like it was brand new. And if you can see down on the front, I still have the little sticker across the display. I've never taken that off in the 4 years. And this one is just over a couple of years old, and it's performing fantastically as well. So I think that's the build quality and the reliability is second to none. I think the other kind of challenges that the EcoFlows have is that they're not great at charging. That was one reason they came up with the alternator charger, because the 12 volts really, really slow. Like 8 amps is going to take a long, long time. You do the math to charge up 200 amp hours, 2000 watt hours. So I'd rather recommend you charge with an inverter, have regular access to mains supply, take it in and out of your house, for example, or use the alternator, the charger that EcoFlow provide through your alternator. And one more thing is, we're actually getting solar panels installed on our home next week. And what we're going to do is, so the garage door behind here will be our battery and connection into our main supply for the house. And literally what I'll do is, if I've been away a long trip, I'll just lift this up and I'll go and put it into the house on a sunny day, and I'll just charge it entirely from our house's solar. So it means that I don't need to obsess about, especially from an eco or financial perspective, that I'm paying for the energy that goes into the EcoFlow. It's always going to be free energy, either from solar in the van. Driving, you can debate whether that's actually free or not, because it's your alternator's requiring fuel to work. But it certainly is free in terms of convenience. And then or charging from the house, and that means that I can, before I go on a long trip, charge everything up in the house and just lift these back in. And although you saw me kind of exaggerating a little bit about the lifting these things up, I just wanted to make sure that you knew the sort of size and shape of these things. Okay, so that's us. I hope you find this helpful. If there's any questions you have, please put them in the comments. If you have an EcoFlow of a different size, model, or you've used them for different things, please do share. Feel free to share this video with anyone that finds it useful, and I look forward to doing more of these. If there's other products you saw that you want to learn a bit more about, or you want to see me using it out in the wild in a bit more detail, I'm more than happy to. But yeah, I would highly recommend the EcoFlow products, and just do your research. You can always start smaller and get bigger devices later, and keep an eye out for deals as well. They often have promo codes. There's deals all the time, especially it feels like they're warming up to new versions. There's an EcoFlow 3 already. If you are EcoFlow, feel free to send me one. I'd be happy to review it, but that would be more of a sponsored or paid review. These EcoFlows, all 3, I bought myself. All right, hope this helps you. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Sending love.